Hello, I'm Dr. Sarah Watts, and I'm going to be answering Google's most asked questions about the clarinet. So here we go. What is a clarinet? This is a clarinet. So basically, it's a lot of wood and metal that's all kind of put together to make a beautiful woodwind instrument. This uses grenadilla wood and it's silver keys, and it makes a beautiful sound. How do you produce sound on a clarinet? So the clarinet is a reed instrument, which means that you need one of these, which is called a reed. It's a bit of cane. And this goes on the mouthpiece, like so. Held in place with a ligature. And then when I blow down the instrument, it will hopefully make a sound. So that's basically how you produce sound on a clarinet. What is the typical range of a clarinet? So this largely depends on what type of clarinet you're using, but I'm going to demonstrate on a standard B-flat clarinet. And my lowest note is a written low E. I say written because it's a transposing instrument, which I'll talk about later. So this is my bottom note. I've got nice 3 octaves. And then I can go a little bit higher still. To a written high C. Why is the clarinet considered a transposing instrument? I have to think how to answer this one. A clarinet is a transposing instrument. I'm going to say largely due to the different lengths of the instrument. We have multiple types of clarinet, starting with the little E-flat clarinet, which is a baby clarinet. And then we have a bigger clarinet, which is called the C clarinet. And then we have a little bit bigger one, this one, which is the B-flat clarinet. As the clarinet gets longer, we have an A clarinet. There is also a bigger one, G clarinet. We also have even bigger one, basset horn in F. We have an alto clarinet. We have bass clarinet. We have contra clarinet. And they're all in different keys. And the length, I guess, helps define which is which. What materials are clarinets typically made from? So if you're talking about a professional level clarinet, or actually more and more makers are using entry clarinets made from wood. Most typically you'll have grenadilla wood for the instruments. And the wood's lovely because the wood is what I think gives the clarinet its beautiful creamy sound. How do you assemble a clarinet correctly? It's a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, really. You have to get all the right pieces in the right order. And there's lots of little different components to a clarinet. We have a bell, because it's shaped like a bell. There we go. And that's just screws in like this. It's held together with cork. And the bit that you have to be really careful at is the middle joint, because there's some quite delicate parts just here. And if you're not careful, you can bend the keys easily, or you can rip a little bit of cork off, and then the instrument won't play, which is really frustrating. So when we put this joint together, we have to hold down this key here, which means when we screw it together, we don't bend the instrument. And then there's a couple more bits, barrel and mouthpiece, and the mouthpiece comes off separately. What is the proper embouchure for playing the clarinet? There's numerous different embouchures, so I'm not going to say if my one is the correct one. But some people play the double lip embouchure, but I play the single lip embouchure. So basically my bottom lip goes over my bottom teeth. My top teeth sit on the mouthpiece. I don't bite, but I kind of create not a vacuum. I can't even describe what I do really, which I should be able to because I do teach this. But yeah, I kind of just blow and sound comes out. That's a really bad explanation. But if you want a better explanation, you can always come for a lesson with me or find another teacher. How do you improve the tone quality on the clarinet? Practice. It's the only way. Long notes. So every day for my warm-up, I will do lots of long notes across the whole of the instrument. So and I'm aiming to get a nice resonant sound, best quality I can. I could go on like this for about an hour. It's quite relaxing for me, very frustrating for everyone waiting for me to finish this exercise. But I go all the way up to the top. Sometimes I'll do this with a tuner as well to make sure that I center every note bang in tune. So that for me is how I improve tone quality on the clarinet. Why does the clarinet squeak during playing? I love this answer because I studied what we call multiphonics for actually the bass clarinet, but you can do them on clarinet as well, for my doctorate. Via this, I looked at harmonics a lot. And so for me, a squeak is not a squeak, but actually you're probably catching a note that's a little bit too high. For example, if I'm playing a low E and I don't center the note correctly, I might pitch too high and get that instead. But that's just really a note within what we call the harmonic series. So this is how I try and advise my students to control their squeaking. And if they squeak, I ask them to play the squeak to find out what they're doing with their embouchure or their mouth or their tongue that creates that squeak, because something is probably in the wrong position. And it's great to be able to build that into your practice. A lot of fun. Love doing that. How do you manage breath support while playing the clarinet? Back to long notes. Should I do that exercise again? You really can't build enough of these basic fundamentals into your practice. So the more you do of this, the better the whole control of your instrument will be. What is the function of the ligature on the clarinet? It's a very simple answer, this. So this is the ligature, and it holds the reed in place. Because without the ligature, the reed's going to fall to the floor. Nothing's going to happen. How do you select and maintain a clarinet reed or clarinet reeds? So I think we've all got different ways of doing this. I tend to have an initial box of reeds, and I'll try and have maybe 6 reeds that all work and that are all ever so slightly different in response, so that I have a different reed for different situations. And the room I'm in now might be different to the concert hall I play in or the room I practice in. So I actually have a reed box, and here's my reed box, and they store in there. And this is a really special reed box as well. I'm really proud of this reed box because it belonged to a clarinet player called Alan Hecker, who was an incredibly famous and prominent British player. And actually he lived in York, where we are today. And when he died, his widow said to me, would you like to pick something off Alan's table? Because I'd done quite a lot of work with Alan, got to know him very well. And so from his little table of clarinet tools and gadgets, I chose this reed case. So this goes everywhere with me, and I have a little part of my old friend and colleague Alan with me. How long does a clarinet reed typically last? So I've just talked about how I rotate the reeds round. So once I've got my 6 reeds that I've blown in, I tend to rotate them round a lot. So one day I might play on another reed, another day I might play on another one, or I might play on 2 or 3 different reeds during a practice session. So I think if you work them that way, you're not constantly playing on a reed so that it destroys itself, within 1 or 2 days. Some of the reeds in here I've actually been playing on a couple of months. Others maybe don't last so long. It's really difficult to say because it's a piece of wood and every piece of wood is different. But I found that if I have one reed on the go, it's a disaster. If I have multiple reeds, and actually I've got more than one box, then actually I don't really struggle to find a reed for each individual situation. What are the differences between plastic and wooden clarinets? Plastic clarinet's made of plastic and a wooden clarinet is made of wood. It's kind of that simple, really. We would consider a plastic clarinet to be a beginner model, and the sound isn't as nice. It's quite kind of tinny. It doesn't really have a lot of colour to it, in my opinion. And then we have the wooden clarinets, which typically a better player would play on, and professional players will play on a wooden clarinet. But having said that, there are some manufacturers that are producing really excellent quality wooden clarinets, such as Henri Selmer of Paris with the Prologue. And this clarinet will actually take you from beginner up to professional. So my advice would be ignore the plastic and go for wood. How often should a clarinet be cleaned and maintained? So you should clean your clarinet after every practice, and you can have a little pull-through swab, pull it through, keep it dry, and that's the best way of maintaining your clarinet. You might want to give it a little bit of an annual service with a qualified repairer, and they will just check corks and pads and make sure everything's seating. So I may well go once a year just to check that my clarinet's in good working order. If you're not careful, they can break. So you might have a spring break, or you might lose a cork or a pad, often fairly minor things. And again, I would take it to a repairer just to get it repaired professionally. What are the common issues that affect clarinet performance? I'd say mostly the performer. I've been watching snooker recently, as everyone watching me record this knows. I love the snooker, but the one thing that I've been talking with a lot of my students at university is the commonality between sport and music and performance anxiety. And for me, that is the biggest thing that can get in the way with a clarinet performer. And there's a lot of pressure on us to play 100% perfect. Just as with snooker, that's impossible. You can't expect a snooker player to get every ball in the pocket of a snooker table. And you can't expect every musician to play a piece 100% note perfect. So for me, dealing with performance anxiety is something that is so important and under-discussed, and something that I think musicians should be much more open about. How do you fix sticky keys on a clarinet? First of all, sticky keys always happen when you've got a big solo coming up or you've got an important concert. It's really frustrating. It's like the clarinet knows and says, oh, I'm going to play you up today. There's a couple of things you can get. I always have some powder paper in my instrument just so I can put under the pads, because the pads sometimes get sticky. That's normally a temporary solution. Other than that, I panic and hope that I've got a repairer close by or a friend that can fix it for me, because I'm the world's worst repairer. How do you store a clarinet properly? So really after every practice, you should take it down, clean it out, put it in a case. And the one thing I tell my students is put it in somewhere where it's as regulated heating as possible. So you don't want to store your clarinet next to a radiator that's going off or on, because you might crack it. You don't want to leave it in a hot car where the sun's blaring down on it, because that's not good for it. Just think about where you put it once it's in the case. How do you transition from a student to a professional clarinet player? Give me another 20 years and I might tell you the answer to that. We're always students, so we're always transitioning. And I think that's something that is really important. I think there's a misconception that you're a professional clarinet player when you pass your grade 8, but actually that's the starting point. It's when it gets a lot of fun. So we're always a student. We may get paid to play, but we're still always learning. But there are little tricks you can do. I've told you about my long note playing, but I also practice my scales, my arpeggios. Every time I practice, I always have etudes and exercises on my stand. So at the moment, I've got the Kel staccato studies, and I'm always trying to improve and tweak my technique. So I'm always aiming to play better, solve problems, correct little things that might go backwards. And I think that's probably the difference between a professional and a student. We learn how to constantly improve ourselves, get in a practice routine, and that stays with us for life. What are some good beginner pieces for the clarinet? You kind of got me here. I don't teach so many young students anymore, so I'm not the best person to answer this question. But I would probably say have a look at some of the exam grades. There's a lot of different exam boards out there now. And also have a look at some of the starter clarinet books, which change all the time. So if I give you what I use, it's probably about 20 years out of date. How long does it take to learn to play the clarinet? It takes a lifetime plus. You never stop learning. I've been playing the clarinet, this is horrible to say, 40 years now, since I think I first picked up the clarinet. And I still consider myself to be learning it. And there's still things about my playing that I absolutely hate. And I've got my strengths to my playing, but I'm not afraid to be very honest and say that I have my weaknesses. And every practice, I'm still looking at ways of learning and improving. So if anybody ever says, oh, I learnt the clarinet in 5 years, don't believe them. What are the differences between clarinet mouthpieces? So there's many, many different mouthpieces out there by different makers. I guess the biggest difference is the lay and the tip. So you might have a wide tip opening or a small tip opening. It's very personal as to who likes what. And so I always say that the mouthpiece picks you, not you pick the mouthpiece. So if you're looking for a new mouthpiece, go to a shop, ask for 10, 20 mouthpieces to be put on a table and find the mouthpiece that picks you. It's a little bit like going to a cat or a dog's home and they say that the animal picks you, not you pick the animal. How do you choose the right clarinet for your needs? And just like mouthpieces, it's really personal. I think each clarinet has a different sound, a different personality, a different colour. Obviously, I want a clarinet that's a professional level clarinet. So I play on Selmer Privilege. I think I can only talk about it personally. Why did I choose my clarinet? And I love the Selmer Privilege because of its sound. It's got a really special dark mellow sound and I can do everything I want on it. I can play loud, I can play soft, I can play different styles of music on it, and it just feels at home when I play it. What is the role of a clarinet in an orchestra? Oh, that could be a 10,000 word thesis. The clarinet just has so many roles in an orchestra. It can play a solo, part of a woodwind section. It can add colour, it can add harmony. And you might be clarinet 1, where maybe you're heard a little bit more, and that's the more solo role. You might be clarinet 2, where you play more of a harmonic role, or you might be lucky enough to play E-flat bass or contrabass clarinet in an orchestra, where you might have some solos, or you might get to play lots of low notes, or you might play like really loud high solos on the E-flat clarinet. So the clarinet in an orchestra can be really exciting because there's so many roles for it. Can the clarinet be used in jazz or modern music? So I specialise in contemporary music. So one of the things that I do a lot of my time is work with composers. I also love modern music because you can play a lot of contemporary techniques on it. As if they'll work, just picking up a clarinet. So my doctorate was in multiphonics. I can play chords on the bass, on the clarinet. I can play microtones. I can flutter tongue. I can do Rhapsody in Blue Gliss. So lots of different extended techniques. So it's really fun playing modern music on a clarinet. And I also love jazz clarinet. I'm a bass clarinet specialist, and one of the most important players of bass clarinet was the jazz player Eric Dolphy. Eric Dolphy was very prominent in the late 50s and 60s and a real pioneer of solo bass clarinet. Sadly, died in the mid-60s when he was undiagnosed with diabetes, but has left an incredible legacy. So go and listen to Eric Dolphy. I love him so much that I also have a little black cat called Eric Dolphy, who's named after the Eric Dolphy because he likes to go out to lunch in the fields and have mice. And the Eric Dolphy wrote a stunning work called Out to Lunch, which I would recommend you all to listen to. What are some famous clarinet solos? This is a really hard one to kind of list. I guess we have our traditional solos like Mozart Clarinet Concerto that I'm sure you've all heard of. We have fabulous sonatas by Brahms. We have works by Debussy, Schumann. But I wouldn't stick to classical clarinet. I would look at what else is out there as well. The clarinet has so many hats on. So I've mentioned jazz playing. There's a lot of klezmer playing. There's folk playing. And I know players that are playing like indie music on clarinet. There's a lot of modern music on clarinet. I'm currently studying a piece by Pierre Boulez to celebrate the 100th year since his birth. So yeah, world's your oyster with clarinet music. How do you improve your finger technique on clarinet? Scales. That's it, scales. What is the history of the clarinet? It's quite old, the clarinet, but it's not as old as, say, the bassoon or the oboe. So we're looking at going back to around 1750-ish onwards. I would advise you to go and start by looking at what a scialmano is and then reading the history from then onwards. And if I start going into more detail, I'll be here for hours. And as I say to my students, if you're not sure of the answer, go and look it up. How do you care for a wooden clarinet to prevent cracking? So I would make sure that you swab it through every time you've practiced. So try and get the moisture out of it and then try and keep it in a regular temperature. I would really recommend doing that. Don't keep it next to a radiator. Don't let it get too cold. Don't let it get too hot. You never really know what wood's going to do because wood is wood. What I would say, if it cracks, try not to panic too much because you can get them pinned and you can get them glued, and sometimes actually they play better once they have cracked. So although it might seem like a disaster if they crack, it does happen and it can be fixed. You can also look at Selmer Clarinets that have a new evolution system as well. And this is really revolutionary to, I think, clarinet design because that's been designed with the intention of trying to stop the top joint from cracking and is having really positive results. That's it. Thank you. Please join the next edition of the Dr. Watts podcast on clarinet questions in 10 years' time. The end. Oh my God.